Whenever you believe you have reached your peak, remember that you are still alive, and that the only time you stop growing is when you cease living. What's up guys, Hello Pencil here, and here we are to do a breakdown and review for Chapter 909D of Record of Ragnarok, which is known as... Actually, what is it? It's untranslated. But with that being the case, we have not too much to talk about. The chapter is kind of short, which does actually bamboozle me considering this is Record of Ragnarok. But there still is a nice little chunk to talk about. So let's not waste any more time and let's hop right into it. Heading me, are you ready? 3, 2, 1, go. What's up guys, that guy with a pencil here. Fun fact, I do happen to have it on me and keep it on me at all times. And another fun fact. I don't know, Susanoo. It may be time for you to get back to... I'm gonna have to roll you up soon, dog. I'm gonna have to roll you up soon. Because this chapter shows us the apex of Susanoo. Essentially, a big part of Susanoo's narrative so far has been the balance of his love for the sword. And naturally, the reflection of his love for the sword shown across history, shown across time. It's why all the different swordsmen across all the different eras have been able to recognize their styles, their forms, their abilities, all through Susanoo and his stance. The Yayorozu no Mikoto? I'm thinking. I forget what the name of it is. But still. Oh no, the Onigiri Ame no Murakumo. Actually, no. No. But essentially, all that history, all that power, all that's been observed by Susanoo and absorbed into him. But naturally, it comes with a byproduct, right? You show so much love and passion for something. You stare so hard into the void, eventually the void will stare back. But of course, this isn't a void that Susanoo was staring into. He was staring into hundreds, if not thousands of years of human history and evolution in regards to the nature of the blade. And this chapter essentially covers the reflection of what that would be if poured back into a deity. And it shows why, once again, Susanoo stands out amongst his fellow crowd of deities as the one god that accepted to learn from man. As we see, ultimately, the stance that Susanoo takes on is uncommon and bizarre. It's completely different from the traditional stance we would see from a character that is wielding a sword. For example, we see this actually previously reflected in Raiden's Hemon. If you remember one of the previous fighters, the one who fought Shiva, the whole hand-out stance is actually kind of familiar to him. A sumo technique being shown within a sword. However, this overwhelming power, this girth, this heft does lead to a fat, hefty, juicy, scrumbly up to sword aura. Because he's just standing there, that menacingly. And we see that ultimately, even SOUJII Okita is like, whoa, G, your girth. A little bit too much for me. I ain't really built for that. Dog. If you could calm it down, I'd appreciate it. If you could calm that bad boy down. But, with that being the case, of course, there are questions to be had here. How often can he take this stance? How many times can he do it? And the real question is, how quickly can he do it? Because unlike a lot of the seemingly ultimate attacks we've seen so far, they don't seem to have, or what this technique will be revealed to be, doesn't seem to have any sort of limit. And seemingly have no charge time. Because we see the way that... Oh, actually, let me talk about the quick basis of the stance. Apparently, it's an adapted version of EI. And EI operates by the principles of waiting until your opponent is in range and... Like, essentially, think of any time you've seen a character do a cool anime sword thing where they stand there and then people run past them and then you don't even see the sword move and then you get, like, that cut back, not 3 seconds later, and you see the sword move really, really fast. That's essentially EI. The principle of waiting until your opponents are in range, attacking when they are in range, and then resheathing your blade after it's done. Both Sasaki and Musashi Miyamoto recognize this as a variation of EI, but of course a big difference is that EI typically requires a scabbard or a sheath, but Onigiri no Murakumo does not have a sheath, so this variation of EI works differently. And we see that ultimately, while Tsukuyomi, the elder brother of Susanoo, doesn't like it, both not Susanoo, because Susanoo's fighting, both Amaterasu and Izanagi both are actually intrigued to see what is going to happen as a result of this attack, and the dynamic specifically with SOUJII Okita. That's interesting. Notably, is this the first... I think this is the first set of lines we've gotten from one of the creator deities. Unless I'm mistaken in Record of Ragnarok so far. Because we haven't actually gotten to see many of them. Like, I think the only creator deity that's even been mentioned outside of this is maybe like Gaia once. in like that flashback about the giants and the Titans. But that's it. Like, we have no mention of it. So it's interesting to see Izanagi kind of just chilling, considering they are a creator deity. Their wife, question mark. Once again, I don't know enough about Japanese mythology, but their wife is nowhere to be found. But hey, at least we got Amaterasu. But with that being the case, we see that SOUJII attempts to bait it, right? Like, as you would. And for all my fighting game players out there, if you have that homie or just the random people online that love to raw level 3 or burn all their meter at once, you know what you gotta do. You gotta charge in, you gotta hopefully react in time or just bait out their level 3 and then block it and then punish them. That's what SOUJII's doing, because he knows that if he were to just engage directly, fall for the ploy of the eye, he would essentially be cleaved in twain. But luckily enough, he is able to work around it, supposedly, because one, he knows that there are no openings when the Susanoo stands, and two, he fails to realize the potency of Susanoo. He underestimates the length of his blade by perfectly estimating the length of his blade. You can see that SOUJII steps just barely in range. He just barely lets his toes touch right on in there. You can see it. And then he immediately backsteps. But he should have been paying attention to earlier in the tournament, dog. He should know. The blade itself does not truly represent its range, as Susanoo, in a feat of strength, of passion, of love, and understanding of the blade, manipulates and kind of breaks physics. Now, he does this by swinging the sword so hard that it just cuts through creation to the point where it's a massive slash, a massive gash that ends up tearing half of Kyoto apart. Like, all the roofs and tops of the building get completely cleaved apart by one swing of this holy blade. But you can see the range of Susanoo massively expanded. And the way this gets rationalized, secret technique, reverse heavenly demon, Amano Magashi, is actually kind of similar, but very different to the principle that we saw with Lubu. If you remember, Lubu just swung Skypiercer really, really hard until he split the sky. That was the utilization of wind physics, kind of just swinging something hard enough that the wind separates from everything that interacts with it afterwards. However, weirdly enough, I thought it was wind at first. We can check it over in the live reaction over on Patreon for his little Wonder Month. You can remember for his little Studios month to check that out. It's about 18 minutes long. There's a counterpoint to this. The single slash that Susanoo uses manipulates the opposite property. By tearing through the air at tremendous speeds, he actually creates a vacuum, the absence of everything, in order to extend the range of his blade. And I'm assuming the sharpness of it comes from the particles essentially attempting to reconnect. It's not the force of the wind that's coming off of Susanoo's blade. It's actually the deletion of everything within it. Obviously not like actual deletion. The sword doesn't magically create existence erasure. It's just a hard swing of a sword. But by doing that, he gets to massively extend the range of his blade. Presumably, there's a limit to this. Like, I'm not sure how hard he can swing it, but the range was enough that SOUJII could not escape in time. And we see, ultimately, SOUJII just couldn't even fully block it or dodge it or deal with it. Once again, he couldn't fully dodge it or deal with it because he couldn't tell its range. And by the time he went to block it, he had to roll. Even Susanoo fully admits, you reacted to my Amano Nagashi on your first try. You rolled sideways to deflect the vacuum blade, didn't you? I'd expected from the strongest manslayer of the Wakamatsu. If you had tried to block it directly, you'd have been cleaved in twain. So, this is a very powerful attack. But still, one thing I rarely mention about Ragnarok is inverse scaling. It's kind of weird. Where does this attack scale? Because technically, physically speaking, while it's cool to see this cut through half of Kyoto, it's still kind of inferior to Skypiercer. Now, like a decent margin. This is the strongest attack the Sword God has to offer? I don't know. But with that being the case, we see that ultimately, SOUJII actually finds himself excited that he finally accepted this battle to the end. A battle that risks not just his life, as he's already fallen, but his very existence. His soul is on the line, and he finds himself enthralled with the potential of a battle that can actually push him beyond. As he says, wow, I'm glad I accepted this fight to the death after all. Thanks to you, it feels like I'm burning more and more. I think I can do this. And we see that now that SOUJII has a body that will not fail him, and now has an opponent that can actually bring out more than his best, he reaches what feels like possibly the first state of transcendence that we've seen in Ragnarok, at least in terms of a physical transformation. Now, obviously we've seen characters with unique abilities before, like we have a look at Qin Shi Huang. He was able to see the weaknesses on others by exposing the weaknesses on himself. The stars that he saw. We know that Lubu was extraordinarily strong. Adam had the eyes of the Lord. For a moment, Sasagi became one with creation. Like, we've seen things like this before, and obviously the overwhelming musculature. But this feels like, as even his own crewmates, including Isami Kondo, don't recognize, a full-stage transformation. Like, this is a straight-up evolution. Like, this is... like, we were talking about Sword Aura before. But no, this is overall just massive, raw power. I think this is meant to represent all of his blood boiling. Like, or burning, if you will. Like, this... the aura and reminiscence of what's coming off of him is literally his blood being overheated by how fast it's pumping in his body. And that is very interesting. I'm wondering to see what this will do. Because remember, SOUJI's already been established as the speedster archetype. He's not necessarily meant to be a slow, methodical fighter. He's someone who moves with divine speed. And that is in his base and then demon child state. So now that he's awakened to a point even further beyond that, the real question is how fast is he going to be? And will he be able to react to, evade, or overwhelm the vacuum blade? I'm leaning towards the fact that he's probably going to have to rely on evading it. Or, now that he knows how it works, he's probably going to work on baiting it, as he was attempting to before. Now that he knows that he can't necessarily trust the range that appears of the Amane no Murakumo, he's likely going to get in as close as possible and just swing. And then react in time. Or possibly intercept Susanoo's swing so he can't get the full range of the vacuum blade off. And with his increased speed, he should be able to manage that. Especially since now it seems like he doesn't feel like he has anything to lose. His arm is already down. He might as well get active. The one thing I'm interested to see, though, is Valkyrie. Remember, we haven't even gotten, like, a name drop, a mention, and SOUJI's been around for a long time. We're on Chapter 90. SOUJI gets introduced before Chapter 33. I'm pretty sure. Because that's where my favorite moment in the entire manga happens. So, I don't know. I'm interested to see what that Valkyrie has to do, if it really is just a strong blade, and I'm interested to see how SOUJI, someone who's even transcended demonic power, will do against the god of the blade. As the narrator declares, that he awakened his demon child. No, the true sword demon within. And the chapter ends with, I am pumped, and I'm going to break you. So both are fully locked in. Susanoo's wound seems to be infinitely less, like, stressing than SOUJI's wound, though. So I'm very, very, very worried for my boy still. And I'm still worried about his longevity. While he does have a body that will not fail him, I'm gonna put a question mark on it. I really hope he doesn't overwhelm himself, especially considering this seems to be the first time he's entering this state ever. Meanwhile, Susanoo clearly seems to have an understanding of all of his abilities. And of course, this underlies the hypothetical Susanoo awakening on top of that. And of course, the one detail that does go to show that maybe SOUJI does have an upper hand here is that Susanoo's sweating. I don't think that's meant to be a tear. That's literally a sweat drop. Meanwhile, SOUJI's just baring his fangs, his eyes glowing ever brighter. So I'm very, very, very intrigued. Overall, a short chapter. This chapter is only 26 pages total. And of that 26 pages, 2 of them are spread. So technically it is a 28-page chapter. For a monthly manga, that's actually, on average, pretty low. Typically they range from like the 40 to 50 pages. Some freaks of nature do like 80 pages to make up for like the 20-week chapter that would exist if you were doing a weekly manga. Or 20-page chapter that would exist if you're doing a weekly manga. But hey, I ain't knocking it. The regular Ragnarok arc and art is peak as always, and I'm very interested to see how the battle evolves. If there's one critique I do have for this chapter, it's that we went back to, speaking of Raiden, here's my ultimate attack. You stand there or prepare for at least try to deal with it while I get it off. That's the only thing. I liked how active the choreography of this fight was at first, but I do think this is just a temporary thing. I think now that we've been introduced to everything, and based on SOUJI's initial nature, we're probably going to get back into some more intense close quarters combat with these two new styles. So overall, I'm very, very excited. However, if you made it all the way to the end of this video, please, if you could do me a favor, leave the demon god. Leave the demon god in the comment section down below. I'd like to thank you so much for watching. Please remember to leave a like, share, comment, and subscribe. Make sure that little notification bell so you don't miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do have to have a Patreon below where you can support me for as low as $1 month. You things like exclusive videos, early content, and more. You also now become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. So those perks include the 18-minute live reaction to this very chapter, ad variations of all my videos, and if you become a $25 patron and a $25 member, you can order whatever video you want. Also, I do have a link to my Ko-Fi in the description down below, where you can drop 5 beans for a short video, 25 beans for a long video, or any support at all. It is always appreciated. I'd like to thank you so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is Dagger the Pencil, writing off. I'd like to give a thank you to our $3 members: Okita Plays, Greyhound, Akid's Void, Astro, Eternal Flame, King Sukuna, NMA, Real Rare, Paris Arnold, G Prosper, and Red Wolf 4765. And I'd like to give a thank you to our $5 patrons: Steron, Sean, Sammy, Midnight Lord 21, Kevin, Encarnacion, Josh Brown, and A+A. And I'd like to give a thank you to our $7 patrons: Autumn Mornings Lazo and Fine. And I'd like to give a thank you to our $10 members: Robbie Uchiha and Jay Warrior. And I'd like to give another thank you to our $10 patrons: Panda Goat, Metal Solid Crisis, Joaquin Munoz, and Joaquin Munoz, along with Idemokami. And I'd like to give a final gargantuan thank you to our $25 patron, Calvin Elder.